Hi everyone, my name is Khalil Iman and I am working as a backend developer in Complere Infosystem. So today we will learn about what is JavaScript, how JavaScript works, and what is the execution context. So what is JavaScript? JavaScript is the most popular lightweight interpreted compiled programming language. It is also known as scripting language for web pages and it can be used for client side as well as server side development. Okay, and why JavaScript is used? JavaScript can be used for creating interactive websites, for building applications. We can use JavaScript with different frameworks to build applications like React.js and React Native and Node.js, etc. JavaScript is also used for game development. Okay, so nowadays JavaScript is most commonly used in the backend of the applications. Each browser has its own JavaScript engine, which is used to support the JavaScript in order to work them properly. The basic job of the JavaScript engine is to take the JavaScript code and convert it into the optimized code that is interpreted by a browser. So there are various JavaScript engine which are supported by various browsers. Most of the common are Chrome, which has V8 engine, Firefox has Spider Monkey engine, and Microsoft Edge and Internet Explorer are using Chakra engine. Okay, so JavaScript is synchronous and single-threaded language. Single-threaded means it will execute only one line at a time. And what is synchronous means? Synchronous means it will only move to another line once the execution of the current line is completed. So we will go deep into this concept. Before we will start that how this JavaScript works, there is one core fundamental that everything in JavaScript happens inside an execution context. So, you can assume that execution context is just like a big box in which all JavaScript code is executed. So we can assume that execution context is just like this big box. Okay, so this big execution context or global execution context is divided into two components. This is the global execution context. And this global execution context is divided into two main components. The first component is called memory component, where all the variables and functions are stored as a key value pair. Okay, so if a program has a variable or a function, so in this memory component, they both will store as a key value pair. So A is the variable and 10 is its value. Similarly, function will also store as a key value pair. And memory component is also called as variable environment. So basically it's like a environment where all the variable and functions are stored as key value pair. It is also known as variable environment. The second component we have is the code component. Code component is the component where the code is executed line by line. It's just like a it's just like the thread in which the code is executed line by line, that is one line at a time. One line at a time. So this whole is called as the global execution context. And then we have this global execution context is divided into the two parts, memory component and code component. Memory component is also called as the variable environment, and code component is also known as the thread execution component. Because in code component all the execution will happen, and the code will be executed one line at a time. So for example, we have a program, we have a line of code that have a variable which is equal to 2, and we have created one function named as sum, which is taking an argument n, and which is only doing the sum of this n variable, and at the end it is returning the result. So, and here we just call this sum function while passing an number as an argument. Okay. So what will happen in this case? So what will happen in this case? Let me open the browser's VS Code side by side so that it can be easy for you. So we have uh, this function which is taking an argument and at the end it is returning the result. So how the JavaScript will execute this code? So firstly, it will create a global execution context. Whenever we run a JavaScript file, it creates a global execution context, and it will allocate the memory to all the functions and variables which are present in the program. So uh, for example, we have n variable here. So n will goes to the memory component, and then function will also go to the memory component. So whenever we run a JavaScript program, JavaScript global execution context will assign a special value to these variables and functions in the starting of the program. So firstly, it has the variable value undefined, and this function also has the value undefined. And whenever we run a program, it moves to the call stack. JavaScript has also the concept of call stack where all the execution is happen one by one. So we have this code stack. So whenever we run the program, firstly the undefined value is assigned to all the variables and all the functions, and after that, uh, When the code is executed, this variable, so we have this, and here we have our code component. So in this, the n variable have two value. The code will go through again this process and the its value 2 num. Then the call stack will execute the function. So function is a block of code. So for this block of code, a new global execution context will create by the JavaScript. And again, the same process will happen. There is the memory component, and here is the code component. And then JavaScript will assign the values undefined to these variables which are inside the block of code. Is- Firstly, it will assign the undefined value to n and the result. Then it will get the value 2 in the n, that is 4, and then it will return the result 4. When the call stack will execute this, it will have the value 4 in the result. Then one by one, uh, this is the execution global execution context number one. So it is in the top of the context right now. So firstly, this will pop out of the stack, and then this whole global execution context will run. So when this whole global execution will run, then we get the value in the res variable. So this is all about the global execution context and how JavaScript execute the code of block of code and how it assign the values to the variables and the functions inside the global execution context and how call stack is executing the code and copying all the values from the code. So that's it. Thank you.